Crossoverus Eventus! Well, or something, I don't know. It's our magic episode.
Of course. Ho, ho, ho. It's magic on the crossover event this week. You like that?
That was beautiful.
I believe it's magic.
Oh, dear.
I know.
Hi, I'm Martin Thomas.
Oh, I'm Chris Cox.
I'm Danni Danger.
And this is Crossover Event.
And today we are, as I said, we're talking about magic and wizards and sorcerers. Oh my! And the reason is, of course, because there's a big movie, you know, you might have heard of it coming out in theaters called Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Oh, I thought this was for Fantastic Beasts. Wow, I got to rethink this whole thing.
Yeah, no, I didn't even see the last one. I was like,
it's actually the best of the three.
Yeah, but
it's still not that good.
That's not a real high
I know.
It's like the best shot of Malort you did.
No. It's being damned with faint praise. I get it.
Indeed. But Doctor Strange, this is the second movie in that series, although the fifth or sixth Doctor Strange appearance in Marvel films, and he is their big wizard sorcerer, or one of them anyway. He's the titular one here, which is what's important. And if you want to hear the full reviews of that movie, you can see it from all three of us in different places. You can see where Danny, both on belloflostsouls.net, has a written review, and they are appearing on the review that I'm on as well, oneofus.net, that'll be posted and up by the time you see this. And then, of course, Martin Thomas, you can see his review on Double Toasted.
Thank you.
I assume you're doing one on Double Toasted.
Already done.
Y'all didn't just skip it and go, nobody cares about this.
Nobody's watching Marvel movies anymore. They just like to complain about them online.
But so we're not going to go into deep depth about that. Sorry, you can see that elsewhere. But what we are going to talk about is our favorite wizards and sorcerers and witches from different media. And that includes movies, television, comic books. And, you know, I always go first, so I'm not going to go first this time.
You're not?
Danny, why don't you go first?
Okay. Let's see. Should I start with the dark or the light? Let's start light. So one of my personal, probably like top 10 movies of all time is Anna Biller's The Love Witch. And in it, the lead character is named Elaine. And so this, the film is shot on 35 millimeter, which I think is like the most recent 35 millimeter film that's been shot. But it's absolutely beautiful. It's very much done in the style of the like 60s sexploitation films. But it follows a woman named Elaine who is moving to a new town after the mysterious death of her husband. And she's looking for someone to fall in love with her. And that's her purpose and her drive. And she's a witch. She uses magic to make people fall in love with her. And it's really this just incredible tale about where you know she serves as this conduit for women in terms of like, first of all, like the power of nurturing and the power of nature and the power of like, and sort of that like witchcraft vibe that is inherent to like strong independent women, but also on the flip side of that, she is very, and I wouldn't even describe it as codependent. It's just very obsessed with love and finding romance and finding love and sexual gratification and being sexually desired. But it's a great play also off of that, because she casts spells on these men and makes them fall in love with her, and then all of a sudden they're too clingy, too demanding. And so it's this take on the like femme fatale, loving men to death.
When year did this come out?
Was it
4 or 5
2016?
years ago?
2016?
Okay.
Because I went to see it on my birthday. I took myself out got all dressed up by myself, went to Alamo Drafthouse, I sat between like two couples and ordered like way more food than I could physically eat and that would fit in my space.
Yeah.
And like obviously these couples were on dates, and so nobody was really like ordering any food, and I was like, I'm just gonna eat all the garlic things and like and drink all the beers. This is my best date ever, and it's with me.
So I'm gonna assume because of all the garlic, those couples did not fall in love with you.
Oh no, that's fine.
I would have. I love garlic. There's a restaurant I think in San Francisco called the Stinking Rose.
Yep. Yes.
That's just we cover everything with garlic. I'm like, I gotta go.
Yeah. Put garlic on everything.
Yeah.
Well, the thing about going on a date with yourself is that you're with a sure thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I always put out with myself.
Yeah. But it's the film is one of the most beautiful things I've ever. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. There's kind of a moment where she gives one of the guys a hallucinogen.
Yeah.
And she's wearing this black coat and she opens it up and it's like full of color. And she's just like sort of using it to hypnotize and mesmerize. And the whole experience is just like very trippy. And there's a lot of commentary. Like, I mean, this is one of those movies where like Anna Billers she produced it, she wrote it, she directed it, she did all the sound. She was very hands-on with the casting. This is like her movie, and I think it took her like something like 5 years or something like that to make.
Wow. Okay.
And like it's just there's so much really great subversive commentary, both on feminism and how we interact with romance and what desire is and what is power. And it's really great. I love it.
No, you got me very interested. The reason I asked about the year, because there was one night where I was home by myself and flipping through channels, and on Amazon there was some movie that looked like what you're describing.
Could have been that.
But this really looked like it was made in 1972.
It absolutely looks like it's made in the 60s or 70s.
Yeah,
like,
okay.
Yeah. I mean, not the tone of the print, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
And it's very beautiful, being like shot in that like 35 millimeter and kind of going back to that. It very much draws on that like sort of like the color is just a little fuzzier and a little muted, but also like there are so many bright colors popping out. Like she's got like this blue eyeshadow that has become very iconic, and like in witchcraft and female and queer communities, like this film, people who have seen this film love it and identify very heavily with it. And it's like, it's aesthetic to like the nth degree. Like every frame for frame, it is a gorgeous film.
Okay.
Martin, what about you?
Well, I chose one of the classic magicians, which is Merlin.
I was almost like when we were first talking about this, no Harry Potter, no Gandalf, no Merlin. But I was like, you know what?
You should have said it.
But you're talking about him in John Boorman's Excalibur.
I am, yeah. Specifically that Merlin, because there's plenty of Merlins out there.
Yeah.
Isn't Sam Neill a Merlin?
Yeah,
I think
there's a movie, actual released movie called Merlin. That he played Merlin in.
Yeah, and I know a lot of times Merlin is portrayed as a figure of evil, or I guess older middle-aged hunk.
Yeah.
But my favorite Merlin is Nicole Williamson in Excalibur. And Excalibur is just one of those movies that's near and dear to me from the moment I saw it in the theater in 1981. It left a big impression. But him especially, the way he comes on in his robes and the gleaming metal skull cap was like, wow. and everything, the way his voice could go like this so often. How counseling he was to Arthur and everybody, and just the constant like, okay, I tried to tell you.
Yeah.
No one listens to me.
He's playing sort of the I guess T. White version of Merlin, where it's like he's the Cassandra. He's the one going, this is all going to go terribly wrong, even for me. I know exactly
what
I'm going to do wrong, and I'm going to do it anyway. Because, I guess the Morgan Le Fay is basically the love witch. So
yes, and the whole pulling in from the charm of making Anal Nathrak Uvas Bethud Doniel Dienve. Yes, bringing forth the dragon's breath, so that Uther Pendragon can change himself to have sex in his armor with Igraine. Amazing sequences, but
hot.
Yeah. It sounds like it wouldn't be, and then you watch it, you're like, well, goddamn. I mean, yeah. I was like,
depends on what you're into, I guess.
I know. I was like, it's worth trying. Right?
It was the time too. There was a lot of movies, genre stuff that was very sexualized in the 70s. I mean, one of his, I can't remember, it was before or after movie Zardoz, the big.
Oh my
that's
God,
right.
I love Zardoz.
Right. Yeah, like Sean Connery walking around wearing almost nothing for the entire movie.
Yeah, it's like he was wearing Borat's.
That's one of my
suit.
So Bad It's Good movies.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah. That is absolutely like, let's have some drinks and really enjoy the full badity of this movie.
The gun is good. The penis is bad. Seriously.
But so often I don't like magic in films or in things because it just seems like kind of a catch-all. It's convenient. It's like, hey, what's your power? I can do whatever needs to be done, and just by saying a few words and moving my hands around. But then that movie, Merlin using magic, so often it was like, this comes at a cost. It's sure you can do some stuff, but you're going to pay for it. And with those kind of stakes, I could buy into it.
Yeah, totally. I love that movie, by the way. One of the best portrayals of Merlin on film. You mentioned like sometimes they're hunky middle-aged guys. Sometimes they're also teenagers.
I know,
the BBC
right?
Series,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Anyway, I'm gonna go to comics, and I have to call out one of the most important like magicians in fiction for me is John Constantine, who basically kicked off in the modern era the DC's Magic universe, which, sorry, Marvel, is much better than your Magic
yes,
universe.
it is.
Has been for a long time. Ever since he was invented by Alan Moore in his run, an incredible run on the Swamp Thing, and then became one of the first Vertigo books in his own book called Hellblazer. John is a trench-coated, heavy-smoking, blonde-haired, scruffy-faced scoundrel that you love anyway, who does sort of this, at first, like, his magic, they never, at least, during the first 3 runs or so of it, they never really get into, how does this work? What exactly can you do? At one point he says something, it's more like, I need the universe to do things for me because it's convenient, so they just happen. You know? Like he's able to fly, get on a plane, and then he's just kind of instantly there.
Yeah, I didn't even catch at first that he was a magic user. I just thought he knew about everything, and he was the go-to guy.
He started off as just like a no good like guy in a punk rock band who was like a junkie, and then he and his friends for a lark got into magic. Turned out he was really bad at it, but also really good at it. Like, he picked it up fast, but boy, he really, really screwed over some people bad. And in fact, sent one young girl they were friends with to hell, which is kind of the motivating force behind Constantine constantly, that he's always like never going to get over the guilt of what happened and ever get her back. But there's so many great runs on him. He's appeared in a lot of other good stuff, some not so great stuff either. I'm looking at you, Justice League Dark Apocalypse. But I know you didn't care for that.
It's so like Justice League Dark is such a good idea and is full of so many good heroes that I just get extra mad when I read a story and it's not good. It's like, how do you how do you mess that up? It's like chocolate chip cookies. How do you fuck that up? It's not hard.
If you haven't encountered Constantine, the run of his that is largely held up as the best thing ever was Dangerous Habits, which I believe was that Garth Ennis, I think
I think that's Garth Ennis.
And you can buy the whole run of it in one graphic novel, and you're kind of done. You could like just read that and be good. And almost every version, like filmed, both animated and live action, has toyed with the stuff from it because it is unquestionably the best run. Where he gets lung cancer and is like, "I'll just use my magic to fix this." Well, it turns out like it's not that easy, but he comes up with like one of the coolest twists. Brilliant, like, okay, I figured this out.
I always forget that book is Ennis because it's like the only book he's ever written where he's like, violence for the sake of violence, spleens, guts, everyone gets killed brutally. Just some people get killed brutally.
Yeah, just some people, not everyone.
But not everyone. It's no crossed.
Thank goodness for that. Danny?
Okay, so I said I was gonna do Thomason from Eggers the Witch, and I love it because it is a really great portrayal of like the masculine fear of feminine power creating witchcraft and feminist subversion. But that's pretty much what I had to say on that. And if I'm being true to myself, what my favorite, my most influential, I mean, it has to be Sally and Jilly from Practical Magic. Like that movie created me in so many ways. Like my sisters and I, we lived at a house that was on like a small lake or pond, and every weekend we would go out and like pick flower petals and talk about who we wanted our future partner, what we wanted our future partner to be like. And there's like we played witchcraft so much, and we grew up out in the country, and so there was just a lot of running around in nature and climbing trees, and I think that there aren't a lot of good movies from any time period that feature the relationship between sisters, which breaks my heart, because I have 2 sisters, and one of my sisters I love both my sisters, but I'm very, very close with one of my sisters, and I tell people all the time, I'm like, I like you, but if we are in the zombie apocalypse, I will trip you so she can live.
Oh.
And that's just how it is.
Picking favorites.
Yeah. And if I ever get married, that is something that I will tell the person that I am getting married to. I love you, but just not as much as my sister. And it was a really powerful story that was not only about that sisterly connection, but it's a tale about generational trauma. It's a tale about one woman's pain and grief being handed down through generations, and these younger women who live in kind of a little bit of a different world and have very different interactions with that generational trauma that they've experienced and the witchcraft that's sort of been handed down. It's a story about something really painful and terrible and grief happening to one woman, and her handing that down through generations, and the way that it builds power and grows as it goes down. And these 2 young sisters, just through their love and empathy and emotional support of one another, breaking that generational trauma. And for something like that to come out in the 90s is pretty emotionally evolved for that time period, for sure.
That movie's been on my bucket list forever, and I've still not seen it. I'm just assuming that all the magic was done on camera and not special effects afterwards, right? Since it's practical magic.
Yeah, no. You had to train to learn actual witchcraft before they made the movie.
A lot of it is not. A lot of it is. There's really not a lot of special effects. It's mostly acting and performance. I can't remember the name of the actor who was on ER who plays the villain in this movie, but he is just downright terrifying at moments.
It's been so long since I've seen it.
Yeah, and so there's just there's a lot of themes. There's themes of abuse and generational trauma and things that women, regardless of generation, have always had to grapple with in some way, and these women, just through their support of each other, come out on top. And I watch this movie all the time. It will always be a part of my soul, and probably influences a little bit of my fashion choices, maybe. I don't know.
I remember Goran, whose name I cannot pronounce.
Yes.
But yes, I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yes.
It kind of reminds me a bit from how you described it of Witches of Eastwick to some degree.
Yes. Witches of Eastwick is absolutely up there with that same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I remember. I'm surprised you didn't see it, because I saw it at a screening back when it came out.
Yeah.
And I liked it quite a bit. It was one of my favorite movies of that year.
That's great. That's so funny to hear, too, because it really wasn't well received.
I know. I came out raving about it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, wait, nobody else likes it? What's going on?
To us all the time.
I know it does happen to us all the
That
time.
happens to a lot of movies from that time period that were about the experiences of women.
Yeah,
that's true.
I mean, it happened to The Craft. It was bombed upon by everyone until people fell in love with it years later. So
did people not like that when it came out?
No,
that is so really wild to me.
Dang, I love that movie.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah,
I even like the remake. I don't know.
Oh,
I liked the remake.
I've not seen the remake.
Or it's a sequel technically.
Yeah,
but,
it's a good time, and it's very respectful of its first. And that, of course, The Craft was also on my list too. Yeah. But they did a really good job of being respectful. It is accessible to another generation. I'm cool with it.
Yeah, because it was very similar to The Craft, but more mature with grown women this time.
Yes.
Oh, Martin, what's your next pick?
Oh, mine would be since we can't talk about Doctor Strange, let's talk about Dr. Orpheus, Dr. Byron Orpheus from the Venture Brothers, who is essentially a parody of Doctor Strange in this show. And the thing about the Venture Brothers show, besides being one of the funniest, not just cartoons, but one of the funniest shows that has ever existed, is that the show, the theme of the show is failure. And Dr. Orpheus is a necromancer who has his own little defenders, where he has a vampire hunter. Oh, I'm sorry. He doesn't hunt vampires. He hunts Blackulas, which is not the same as Black Draculas.
Right.
There's a distinction. Jefferson Midnight. And Well, the third.
I forget the names. There's so many characters.
I know,
on that show.
I know, and I just looked it up. But anyway, the thing about Dr. Orpheus is that he's one of the few characters on that show with dozens of cast members who's actually competent at what he does. He's actually a really good magic user.
And he's also the only one who has his own leitmotif that follows him around musically. Like anytime he does anything, the music's like da 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 da. Love it.
And he's also one of the few really good characters who genuinely cares about the teenage boys, the actual Venture brothers.
Yeah.
It's just sad because he gets dunked on all the time just because, well, okay, he speaks in a flowery way, like he's on Broadway, but hey, he's a magic user. It makes sense.
Comes with the territory.
His teenage daughter doesn't really respect him, which is to be expected, I suppose.
She's punk rock.
But also Dr. Venture, who is the poster boy for failure, is always giving him the hardest time. And even before Rick Sanchez was debunking magic with science, Dr. Venture was doing it to him, to Dr. Orpheus, even though, look, he's actually conjuring shit. Yeah.
In the context of the show, it's
yeah,
real.
it's real.
And
It's
Venture's
real.
always like, that's not real.
Yeah. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I agree. I think Venture Brothers is kind of a must-watch for almost anyone, but especially if you have a fandom, if you've ever really gotten into like Marvel or whatever, this is just kind of a send-up of that mixed with sort of a lot of the early origins of stuff like that. There's a lot of Doc Savage and things like that.
Well, it started as a parody of Johnny Quest and then just expanded to movies and mostly the Marvel Universe.
Yeah, like that first season is very much like that, Scooby-Doo, parodying things like that, especially the Ghosts of the Sargasso episode, one of the best ones ever. But yeah, highly recommended. Dr. Orpheus, I can't believe it didn't even occur to me to think of him. I was like, Martin, damn it. My final pick, and I realize that we all like here agree Joss Whedon is a problematic person, and we also understand that we didn't know it when he was putting out a lot of his best stuff. I mean, nobody did. Nobody was saying it. In fact, it was widely thought he was one of the nicest guys in the business. That was like the thought people loved to work with Whedon. Turns out none of that was true at all. He's a real son of a bitch. But he did make one of my favorite shows on TV of all time, which is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And the character of Willow on there played by Allison Hannigan, was the breakout character from that show for me, where she, as the show went on, discovered that she had witch powers, magic powers, and just had fascinating arcs. I know a lot of fans really disliked the 6th season that goes incredibly dark, but wow, that was just watching her passage like good witch to like evil witch, and then coming out of it again, spoiler, is really emotionally powerful, and there's some just heavy stuff that happens, but that also includes her relationship with these other characters and the way it changes over time, evolves, and they all learn sometimes not to really trust each other completely either. With Willow, it wasn't so much them not trusting Willow as Willow sort of realizing, wow, people like kind of screw me over a lot or don't take me seriously. And it still resonates with me even today. There's the best episode of that show is Once More with Feeling, the musical episode where there's a demon that makes everyone have no control over themselves and they have to sing. Like music swells, they have to sing and dance, but they also, while they're doing it, give up their dirtiest, nastiest secrets. So like it's built to this point where everybody's been keeping all these secrets from each other and they all come out in one single episode. It's like, oh my God.
I mean, I see your Once More with Feeling and I Raise You a Hush.
Yeah. Also
because
quite good.
That still terrifies the hell out of me. I have a lot of feelings about Willow because the parallel between like magic and drug addiction was a little bumpy for me. There's a lot of things in that season that are bumpy. And there's a lot of things about going back and revisiting Buffy that is bumpy, but Buffy is another show that, again, like shaped my personality, and a lot of the quips and the manner in which I speak comes from Buffy. But I think when I was younger, Willow was definitely the character I related to the most, and now that I'm older, it does chap me a little bit that they couldn't say the words bisexual. They're like, oh, she's with a woman, so she's a lesbian now. And the word bisexual did exist then. So, I mean, Buffy is such a so problematic, and I love it so much. And I think that the two things can be true at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no question. I mean, there's a lot of classic movies that you're like, there's a lot of problems with this by today's standards, but there's no denying it was a great movie.
Yeah.
You know, what are you going to do? Sometimes you got to gauge stuff in the context of when people saw it at the time.
And the important thing is to like have those conversations when you're watching something like that. When you're having a discussion, like, let's talk about what this did wrong, and let's talk about like how Xander is now we recognize him as like the nice guys finish last, harmful narrative, and like let's have a conversation about these things because that's how we learn and that's how we evolve. Because I think when something is so pivotal to especially your a developmental time in your life, we're all going through a developmental time until we die. But like when something is a big part of how your personality, aspects of your personality develop. To then say like, oh, I'm going to erase this thing from my life because it is problematic, I think removes opportunity for conversation and for growth.
Yeah, it's a very good way to put that.
Yeah.
I don't think you can have that conversation about something that was widely regarded as good without also acknowledging what was good about it, because otherwise it just feels like, well, now it's terrible. And like, we're not saying that. We're saying there's important things to discuss in here of why, you need to understand these things don't work, especially the Xander thing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he was a problematic trope, to be sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
It created a generation of like, but I deserve love. God damn it, screw anyone who doesn't see that.
Absolutely. And I would say, and I'll say totally openly and vulnerably that like, rewatching Buffy after my divorce helped me to have a very realistic conversation with myself about the nature of codependency. And like sometimes when you're having big complicated issues that feel too difficult to tackle head on, interacting with them through the medium of fiction is a really safe way to have those conversations with yourself and to experience that introspection without like exhausting yourself.
Sure.
And I think that's like Buffy means a lot to me in that way, and Willow's presence means a lot to me in that way because it allowed me to also have conversations about my queer identity with myself, where I would sort of be like, okay, what does that mean that she's with a woman now, and why do they keep saying that she's a lesbian, and what does that mean for me? And like I will always have a lot of love in my heart for Buffy because it's such a hot mess. It has helped me be less of a hot mess.
On the downside, you can't get those songs out of your head for like 2 months.
That soundtrack still slaps.
Still, I listen to it in my car.
So good.
Yeah. Anyway, we got to wrap this episode up. Thank you for watching. You should leave comments, because when you leave comments with questions, we'll probably read them on the air and respond to them. And that's good. We like it when you do that. Also, make sure that if you're not already a subscriber at Screen Fanatic, which is where we put these things up at, you should be a subscriber there and check that out. As well as you should read all the wonderful stuff that Danny writes over at belloflostsouls.net.
Yes, please.
And check out Double Toasted with Martin Thomas, of course.
Thank you.
And his gang of ne'er-do-wells.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. No, that's much better than the hive of scum and villainy.
Oh, no. Either that or
that sounds fun, too.
It was either that or miscreants. I wasn't sure.
Also fun.
Up to their tomfoolery.
Sounds a little vanilla, but okay.
And me at oneofus.net. And speaking of that, you can watch the bonus video for this week where we're just going to knock out a lightning round real quick of a bunch more of the magic stuff that we love. You have to be a subscriber at the brown coat level or above to check that out. But every week there's a bonus video. So there's a lot of bonus stuff you get from that.
So much.
As well as just tons of other stuff. Heck, he and I have done commentaries, tracks for movies. They're like tons that are on there. Yeah, that are very fun. So anyway, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. What do we say?
Bye.
Crossovers, Aventus again?
Sure.
Better? You can add some visual effects, director.
You can twirl it around. Some kind of psychedelic Doctor Strange thing going on. Even a cheap one.